Superman is back, and I guess so am I.
Hey, buddy. Eyes up here.
How's it going, everybody? Today we're talking about Superman 2025, directed by James Gunn. This is one of my most anticipated movies of the year, but also a film that I've kind of gone back and forth with constantly for its entire rollout. Early marketing seemed rough, but as things got deeper and deeper, my anticipation built. And it's safe to say that James Gunn is one of my favorite directors in the comic book genre just because everything he seems to make is always packed with so much heart and vibrancy. And I'm happy to report that they got Superman right this time. James Gunn's Superman isn't just another reboot of the world's most iconic hero, it's a bold reimagining that manages to be reverent to the past while injecting the character with new life. While over the last decade we've been presented with this version of the character that's been very dark and gritty, and don't get me wrong, I love Zack Snyder's Superman, I love what Henry Cavill did with the role, but it's nice to see a comic book movie yet again embrace so much hope and goodness, especially a Superman movie. That's what the character is at the root of it. That's what he's always been. Somebody who represents hope and optimism and faith. And at its heart, this movie triumphs because it understands the soul of Clark Kent. James Gunn crafts a version of the character that isn't ashamed for what he stands for. He isn't brooding or a reluctant savior. He's driven by doing the right thing, even when that costs him. I was skeptical of how his performance would come off, but honestly, David Corenswet is the most true-to-form version of the character we've gotten in live action since Christopher Reeve, and that is a big mantle to live up to. He's cool, but not in a mug sense. He's cool because he's got a confidence in himself, but also what he stands for. He loves the people around him. He also makes things like saying, "What the hey?" and "golly" somehow charming. It's easy to relate to this version of the character. He isn't perfect, and even though he possesses these godlike powers, when you're watching him, he just feels like one of us. I also think just tonally, the film has a lot to balance, and it manages it very well. It's never too gritty or too ridiculous. It walks a fine line, and I think that's something that James Gunn does with a lot of his work. He can be overly campy, but he can also be right down the middle of sincere and chaotic and never make it feel like too much. And sometimes it struggles to juggle everything going on because while this is a Superman movie, it's also sort of a team-up movie. There's a lot going on. He's working with this core group of characters to achieve a common goal. But considering the marketing, I became very nervous for that. I thought it was going to be overstuffed and not have a good balance to it, but after seeing the final result, somehow they pulled it off. Not to mention, I think the chemistry and the dynamic between Clark Kent and Lois Lane in this movie, played by Rachel Brosnahan, is one of the best comic book romances we've seen in quite some time. You can sense and feel the passion there, but at the same time, they also have their respective duties and things that they are fighting for, both individually and together. And there are moments throughout the film where you see conflict there. Obviously, there's been that scene promoted in the trailer of Lois Lane sitting down to interview Superman, and their ideas of the way the world should work don't always 100% mesh, but they still have that love for each other that transcends all of the rest. For this being such a comic booky, big, vibrant movie, the relationship felt real. It felt believable. It felt lived in. And Nicholas Hoult also gives a great performance as Lex Luthor. It's different than anything we've seen, but it also lines up very well with the animated series and things you would expect from that realm. He's very cocky and arrogant and stubborn. And the way that this story is established, you can tell that there's already a history there. We are picking up somewhere along the journey, but not necessarily from the beginning. So that hatred and resentment for Superman has already begun to build and has already been developed within Lex Luthor. And he's got a plan, and the entire movie he is working towards achieving that plan. And there are moments that are very sinister, admittedly very funny, but overall Nicholas Hoult really pulls it off, makes it believable, and his performance ties perfectly into the entire vibe of the movie itself. Not to mention, the entire visual language here is unlike anything we get from live-action comic book movies. As I said, the past decade or so, comic book films have drifted towards the more dark and gritty and realistic approach, or as real as you can get with a superhero movie. James Gunn fully embraces the comics here. He fully embraces the animated series and even Justice League Unlimited. And he crafts a film that feels like panels of a comic book flying off of the page. The visuals are striking without being overindulgent. The action sequences are dynamic but never overwhelming. The fight scenes are so kinetic, they just pull you in. Every time Superman takes flight, it means something. It has weight. There's awe, but also soul to it. And there were times where I was totally sucked in. I couldn't look away. It begs for your attention and then holds on to it for the entire runtime. And no, it's not perfect. It's got a lot of flaws. It can be messy, overly ambitious, but I don't think this is a version of the character that is trying to be perfect. In fact, this is a version of Superman that we really haven't seen in live action before. He's not unbeatable. He's not perfect or extremely well calculated at all times. He leads with his heart and not always with his mind, and sometimes that gets him into trouble. But something I've always enjoyed about James Gunn's work is even when he's not perfect, he's real and he's sincere, and I felt the sincerity with every frame in this movie. And every time you think the film is going to go in a direction that is gimmicky or cheap, it somehow redirects in a way that you wouldn't expect. I mean, shoot, they even found a way to bring Crypto the Superdog into the movie and not make it feel like a scheme just to sell more toys. But above all, even with all of the comic book elements, even with all of the ridiculousness and the over-the-top nature of being a cape flick, at its core, this is a movie about humanity. This is a movie about finding your place. This is a movie about hope and purpose. Clark Kent isn't just an alien sent from Krypton. He's also a son to loving parents and a friend and somebody who wears his heart on his sleeve at all times. And that emotional core is what makes this movie so special, even with its flaws. The movie's not perfect, but I found plenty of beauty in its imperfections, and I think for this being the movie that launches the new DCU, I think James Gunn and the whole crew delivered here, and it represents a very promising future that I can't wait to see what comes next. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this review. Also, let me know your thoughts and opinions of the film down below in the comments. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, follow me over on Letterboxd to keep up with what I'm watching. I try to stay up to date over there. I know I haven't been very active on here recently, and I can't promise that I always will be as active as I would like, but I felt like this was a good movie to sort of get back into the swing of things. But with all that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.